Or in San Francisco, South Korean President Yoon pitches the need to ramp up global connectivity in key areas, the center on trade and supply chains as he meets CEOs on the sidelines of the APEC summit. He separately met with Apple CEO Tim Cook for talks on business cooperation. U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping meet for the first time in a year in San Francisco amid a tense bilateral relationship. They agree upon reopening military communication, but divisions remain over Taiwan. It was a big day in South Korea for over 500,000 test takers of the college entrance exam Suneung. What stood out this year? Math-free and no killer questions. It's November 16th, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yun Byung. We start in San Francisco, where President Yoon landed earlier and pitched the need to ramp up global connectivity in trade and supply chains among many key areas as he met CEOs on the sidelines of the APEC summit. His economic diplomacy kicks into high gear this week. Our senior presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
President Yoon pledged a role for South Korea in strengthening global connectivity in crucial areas to overcome multiple crises hindering sustainable development around the world. Speaking at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation CEO Summit on Wednesday, Yoon highlighted the importance of multilateral institutions to ensure the free flow of trade, capital, data and people across borders. Noting that APEC members had responded swiftly and demonstrated leadership during the Asian financial crisis and the global financial crisis, Yoon said the group must rise to the challenge again in the face of conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, technological rivalry, and the weaponization of resources.
팬데믹을 계기로 부각된 공급망 리스크는 특히 자유무역을 통해 발전해온 아태 지역 국가들에게 큰 위협 요인이 되고 있습니다. 디지털 경제의 무한한 가능성에도 불구하고 국경을 넘는 데이터의 연결과 이를 통한 가치 창출은 아직 시장의 기대에 미치지 못하고 있습니다. 세계 경제가 다시 역동성을 회복하고 지속 가능한 성장을 이어가기 위해서는 APEC이 중심이 되어 세계 경제의 연결성을 가속화해야 합니다.
First, he said trade, investment and supply chains should be strengthened across the region to promote the free movement of goods and services. This would include lowering trade barriers and forging innovative responses such as early warning systems for key resources. He also called for digital interconnectivity, noting that data and transactions should move seamlessly across borders, and digital divides between societies must be removed for fair access and use of technologies. Yoon noted that South Korea announced a Digital Bill of Rights in September based on 5 principles: freedom, fairness, safety, innovation and solidarity. Yoon has been pushing for new international standards to protect and enhance human welfare amid the rapid evolution of digital technology. He also emphasized the need to expand exchanges between young people across the Asia-Pacific to spark innovation and business opportunities. Yoon proposed an exchange program for young scientists with visa waivers and speedy entries to enable travel to study, research and attend workshops between APEC members, based on South Korea's adoption of the APEC business travel card system, which promoted intra-regional trade, investment and people-to-people exchanges. APEC member nations are home to around 2.95 billion people and represent approximately 62% of the world's GDP and 48% of global trade as of 2021. Yoon on Thursday will attend the Leaders Summit of the US-led Indo-Pacific Economic Framework of 14 countries being held on the sidelines, as Washington looks to strengthen its network of trade and tech relations with regional partners amid its rivalry with China. Over the next few days, the top office says Yoon will play a role in leading global discussions at the APEC summit, which marks its 30th anniversary this year, especially as South Korea looks to assume presidency of the regional economic meeting in 2025. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, San Francisco.
As the nation's #1 salesperson, President Yoon met the leaders of GM, Visa, and Apple in San Francisco for business opportunities. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Amid a flurry of diplomatic events, President Yoon is also using his APEC trip to spur on more investment into South Korea. One major announcement, General Motors is looking to expand production in South Korea, according to the top office on Wednesday, speaking in San Francisco.
The GM vice chairman expressed confidence in business activities in South Korea due to the government's bold regulatory reforms and improvements in systems that align with global standards. He announced plans to continue expanding production in Korea, building on the partnership of the last 30 years.
The summit between President Yoon and the GM representatives came at GM's request just before Yoon's appearance at the APEC CEO summit. While no specific number was announced, according to GM Korea's website, it has 3 plants in Korea with a current production size of 900,000 fully assembled cars and 900,000 cars with final assembly done elsewhere. Other CEOs also approached President Yoon ahead of his keynote speech, including Visa Executive Chair Al Kelly, who said he will be looking to invest into South Korea more with focus on helping small to medium-sized enterprises. Additionally, Yoon's meeting with Apple CEO Tim Cook garnered attention given that Apple sources 30% of its parts from South Korea, the most of any country outside the US.
The meeting with Apple CEO Tim Cook solidified the supply chain and cooperation system between Apple and Korean component companies. President Yoon praised Apple highly for contributing to the growth of South Korea's digital innovation ecosystem and for inspiring innovation in many future generations and companies worldwide.
Apple CEO shared his ties to South Korea, saying that his father was a Korean War veteran. He also promised more investment into the country, saying Apple wouldn't be where it is without South Korea, citing the more than $100 billion of exchanges in the past 5 years alone. Meanwhile, President Yoon has regularly taken the chance to meet local tech leaders on his overseas trips, and San Francisco was the perfect place for this as well. Meeting with South Koreans and Korean Americans in tech, he promised an improved atmosphere for tech startups with better R&D opportunities.
특히 세계 최우수 연구자들과의 글로벌 연구 협력 기회를 크게 확대하고 해외 연구자는 대한민국 정부의 R&D에 참여할 수 없었던 제한도 지금 없애고 있는 중입니다.
Tech entrepreneurs and science scholars share their learning experiences to President Yoon, especially on the hardships faced by being from overseas. President Yoon called them the future of not only South Korea but the world and encouraged them to take on more challenges. 김도현, Arirang News.
Staying in San Francisco, U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping have met for the first time in a year. They agreed upon restoring military communication and curbing fentanyl, but divisions remain over Taiwan. Our foreign affairs correspondent Ji has the key takeaways.
Leaders of the U.S. and China met face-to-face for the first time in about a year in San Francisco on Wednesday and agreed to resume military-to-military communication and take steps to curb the production of fentanyl, a leading cause of drug overdoses in the U.S. After meeting President Xi Jinping for 4 hours, President Biden announced that the two countries are back to direct, open, and clear communications to avoid miscalculations on either side. Their latest agreement comes after Beijing cut off this kind of military communications with Washington last year, after then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. Relations between the two countries escalated further in February, when the U.S. shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon that flew over its territory. On the subject of fentanyl, Biden said they've agreed to take action to reduce the flow of Chinese-made chemicals that are used to manufacture illicit fentanyl. A senior U.S. official reportedly explained that China will go after specific chemical companies that make fentanyl precursors. According to the White House, during their meeting, Biden also emphasized Washington's commitment to achieve complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Biden and Xi also made clear that they want to stabilize the relationship between the two countries.
We have to ensure that competition does not veer into conflict. And we also have to manage it responsibly, that competition.
The Chinese president also said turning their back on each other is not an option for two large countries like the U.S. and China.
It is unrealistic for one side to remodel the other, and conflict and confrontation have unbearable consequences for both sides.
But they remain at odds on the issue of Taiwan. She reportedly told Biden that China has no plans for military action against Taiwan in the coming years, but did lay out conditions where the use of force could be used. Biden reportedly asked China to respect Taiwan's electoral process. But at the end of a press conference after the summit, Biden said he had not changed his view that Chinese President Xi Jinping is still a dictator, while claiming that significant progress was made during the summit.
I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours. Anyway.
This could spark a backlash from Beijing, which had earlier responded furiously when Biden made a similar comment in June, and could affect the positive energy coming out of the meeting that took months of preparation and detailed planning. Arirang News.
Moving on, North Korea threatens to take more military action after criticizing the recent security talks between South Korea and the U.S. The regime appears to be seeking to use this as an excuse to potentially test launch its new ballistic missiles. Defense correspondent Jeong reports.
North Korea has warned it will take more visible and strategic military action in protest of the recent security talks between the defense chiefs of Seoul and Washington. In a statement on Thursday, the regime's defense ministry claimed that during the annual security consultative meeting held between the allies earlier this week, South Korea and the U.S. have shown that they're aiming for an armed invasion of North Korea. At the SCM, Seoul and Washington updated their tailored deterrence strategy for the first time in 10 years, an agreement established for tailored deterrence against North Korean nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction. In response to the North's threat, Seoul's unification ministry defended the revision, saying it is a self-defensive measure to better counter North Korea's nuclear and missile provocations. North Korea appears to be attempting to use Seoul and Washington's bilateral security talks as an excuse to launch major provocations in the near future. This comes as the North reportedly conducted successful tests of its newly developed solid fuel engines for a new type of intermediate-range ballistic missile. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff says a test launch of an IRBM is highly likely.
The development of a solid fuel intermediate-range ballistic missile seems to be a measure to secure strike capabilities, targeting the UN command's rear bases and the U.S. military bases in Guam and Japan, as well as to block U.S. reinforcements and UNC support to the Korean peninsula. It seems highly likely that actual test launches will take place.
Pyongyang is also widely anticipated to carry out its third attempt at launching a military spy satellite around November 18th, which marks its Missile Industry Day. The JCS says it is closely monitoring North Korea's activities with the U.S. intelligence authorities. Jeong, Arirang News.
It was a big day today here in Korea for over 500,000 test takers of the college entrance exam Suneung. It was the first mask-free exam in 4 years, and there was no difficult killer questions. Hyeong has the wrap-up.
The faces of the students were filled with a mix of emotions and a sense of liberation. Finally, this year's Suneung, the college entrance exam in South Korea, is over.
I was a bit nervous at first because the exam was a little bit different from the mock exams in June and September, but it was good.
Korean language was difficult, math was easy, English was manageable, and elective subjects seemed straightforward, so it was okay.
More than 500,000 mainly high school students took the exam. The entire country was dedicated to ensuring a smooth and supportive environment for the test takers on this significant day. In Korea, where there was a strong desire to attend the top universities, the Suneung Day is a nationwide event. Local police officers and Marine Corps Veterans Associations also stepped up to assist in the smooth running of the exam. During the English listening test from 1:05 p.m. to 1:40 p.m., flights were suspended and there were restrictions on the train and vehicle traffic. The Suneung began at 8:40 a.m. with Korean language. Normally, the whole exam lasts about 8 hours, but depending on the number of elective subjects, some students can end up taking the Suneung for more than 9 hours. This exam is like a marathon, continuing with math, English and elective subjects one after another, all in just one day. Many parents stood in front of the school gate with determination and worries and showed their support.
I felt relieved. I was watching the news and they said it was difficult. Still, I believe my daughter did her best, so regardless, I'll support her with her medical school preparations and achieve good results.
This year, a total of 504,588 students are taking the Suneung. Of those, 31.7% are retaking the exam, marking the highest proportion of retakes in 28 years. Despite not containing certain difficult questions, the so-called killer questions, there were some indications that it was difficult overall. Also, this year marks the fourth Suneung since the outbreak of COVID-19, but due to relaxed quarantine measures, even students with COVID-19 can wear masks and take the exam in the same testing room as others.
The exam scores will be available for confirmation on Friday, December 8th. Hyeong-sik, Arirang News.
President Yoon on Thursday nominated Daejeon High Court Chief Judge Hyeong-sik to the position of constitutional judge. The Chief Presidential Secretary Kim Dae-gi said at a briefing that the nominee is right for the role and embodies virtue and confidence. Jeong began his career as a judge at Suwon District Court in 1988. He has since worked as the Chief Judge of the Seoul High Court and the Seoul Bankruptcy Court. The nominee has to undergo confirmation hearings by the National Assembly before appointment. In the Middle East, Israeli soldiers stormed into Gaza's largest medical facility amid pressure to prove that Hamas was indeed using the hospital as a command center. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
Amid international outcry over Israeli military operations in the area close to Al-Shifa Hospital, the Israeli military on Wednesday said it had found the Hamas command center as well as weapons and combat gear belonging to the Palestinian militant group at Gaza's largest hospital. Hamas strongly denied the allegation, calling it lies and cheap propaganda. However, the Israeli Defense Forces released a video showing some of the items recovered at the hospital, including automatic weapons, grenades, ammunition, and flak jackets. The announcement comes as Israel has repeatedly claimed that the hospital sits above a Hamas headquarters, a remark the U.S. has also supported citing its own intelligence. The White House, however, denied giving Israel the green light to carry out a raid on the Al-Shifa hospital, stressing Israel operated on its own accord. According to National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby on Wednesday, the U.S. did not okay the military operations around the hospital as the Israeli military acted in accordance with their own establishment procedures. The comments come after Hamas said the storming of the Al-Shifa hospital represents an American green light for the Israeli occupation. Meanwhile, Qatari officials announced Wednesday that they are currently working on a deal between Hamas and Israel that includes the release of around 50 civilian hostages from Gaza in exchange for a 3-day ceasefire. The deal, which is currently being coordinated with the U.S., could potentially see Israel release some Palestinian women and children from Israeli jails, while increasing the number of humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza. If realized, it would mark the largest release of hostages since the armed conflict began on October 7th. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
It's the shopping festival season here with the Korea Sale Festa underway right now nationwide. Will this be a chance to bolster consumer confidence amid sluggish domestic demand? Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young is here with this topic. Hi, Ha-young.
Good evening, Jung-min.
So, Ha-young, I heard it's the largest ever Korea Sale Festa. Tell us about it.
You're right, Jung-min. Well, for those who are not aware of this event, think of it as America's Black Friday or China's Singles' Day, which are the largest shopping festival in each country. And here in South Korea, we have an annual event called the Korea Sale Festa, which was first launched in 2015 in response to the economic slowdown during the MERS outbreak. And it is back again this year on a larger scale and for a longer period. It kicked off on Saturday, and about 2,500 companies are taking part, which is the most ever. And this year's event has also been extended from 15 to 20 days to ensure that more people can take advantage of lower prices.
You know, I could be a shopper, right? What are some of the items I can buy at lower prices?
Well, during the event, there are discounts on a wide range of items from food and including fashion and even automobiles. And large supermarkets are offering up to a 50% discount and buy one, get one free promotions on fresh produce, processed food, household goods, and more. And with kimchi making season underway, there have been discounts on kimchi making ingredients. And at the place I visited yesterday, cabbage was already sold out. And for items like cars and home appliances, now might be the right time to make a purchase. And Hyundai Motor is offering discount of up to 6 million won, or around $4,500 on electric cars. And Kia Motors is also offering discounts of up to 7 million won. And LG Electronics has included 17 popular items such as dryers, dishwashers, and steam closets in the promotion, while Samsung Electronics has 16 items on discount, including TVs. And also, major cinemas are taking part for the first time, offering a 3,000 won discount on movie tickets. And now let's take a listen to what consumers had to say.
I came shopping today after hearing about a discount sale. It's great that there are a variety of discounted items, but it'd be even better if there were bigger discounts on daily necessities.
I use social media a lot, but I didn't know about this event. With prices going up these days, I hope there are good deals on kitchenware and bedding, especially for single-person households.
Hyeong, can we expect a boost in consumer demand?
Well, the growth in private spending in South Korea has slowed down due to the impact of high key interest rates. And to boost economic growth, consumer spending, which takes up about half of the GDP, needs to rebound. However, private spending in the third quarter only rose by 0.3% compared to the previous quarter. And considering the decline in the second quarter, the domestic market is still relatively sluggish. And consumer prices last month jumped 3.8% on year, the highest in 7 months, making it difficult for consumers to open their wallets. And in response, the government plans to stimulate consumer sentiment through the larger scale discount event. And during last year's Korea Sale Festa, among participating firms, 90 firms generated total sales worth 5 trillion won, or around $4 billion. And with an increase in both the number of participating companies and the duration, Seoul's Industry Ministry forecasts that sales will increase by 10 to 20% this year. However, experts say that the boost to consumer spending could be limited as the level of discounts is relatively lower than what's offered on China's Singles Day and Black Friday in the U.S. Take a listen.
On Black Friday, manufacturers are the ones that cut prices, resulting in big discounts. But in Korea, unless manufacturers lower prices, relying solely on discounts from retailers may have limitations in encouraging consumers to open their wallets. The government should offer incentives to both retailers and manufacturers so that consumers can buy heavily discounted products.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see how much it can boost consumer spending throughout this year.
I might open my wallet. All right, thanks for the report, Hyeong.
Thank you.
A wintry blast will hit most parts of South Korea tomorrow. Cold spells will make a return along with blustery winds. As a surge of Arctic air will enter the country overnight, morning temperatures will drop to -1 degree Celsius tomorrow. In fact, many regions will experience the first snow of the season tomorrow, along with on and off showers. As for the amount of snowfall, parts of 전라북도 and mountainous regions of Jeju Island will see up to 10 centimeters. 충청남도 and 경상남도 provinces will see 1 to 5. The capital region will see relatively less, with only light snowflakes flying around. Inclement weather conditions are expected for the coastlines, with gusty offshore winds. Winds will be gusting as fast as 25 meters per second. And inland regions may also see frost for the morning hours. Make sure to cover any sensitive vegetation and take care of unprotected plumbing. We'll see a wide variation in morning temperatures tomorrow. Chuncheon will be especially cold at -2 degrees. Highs in Seoul will be getting up to 3 degrees, Gwangju 8, Busan will be reaching 12 degrees. Until Saturday, southern parts of the country will see a mix of rain and snowfall. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Greetings, everyone. My name is Federico Cuello. I am the ambassador of the Dominican Republic in the Republic of Korea. Arirang is the one channel in which ambassadors have a say. Ambassadors' opinions are taken into consideration. Ambassadors can promote what they are doing. I am truly grateful to be asked to speak for Arirang. I hope Arirang continues and diplomat talks continues as well, because really it is the one window in my 6 postings as ambassador I have found to speak about my work and to speak about those issues that are of relevance for the Dominican Republic and for Korea. And I look forward to coming back as many times as possible during the remaining time I have here in Korea, resonating with the world with Arirang.
Hello everyone, it's Thursday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Recently, game lovers have been flocking to Busan. It hosted the semifinals of the League of Legends World Championship just last Sunday, and now starting this Thursday, there's South Korea's biggest game fair, G-Star. This year, this annual gaming trade show is going to be the biggest ever, with over 1,000 companies from 42 countries operating over 3,320 booths. What major game companies will visitors be able to see, and what are the latest trends in the gaming industry? For this, we have invited Ethan Shin, journalist at One Esports. Ethan, welcome to the show.
Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you. And we also have Austin Chu, a game business development manager from Esports Korea, which is a blockchain game platform. Good to have you with us, Austin.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. Now, South Korea's largest gaming event, G-Star, is back starting today. And I hear there is a record high number of participating companies. Now, Austin, since you are in Busan right now, could you tell us more about this and how is the atmosphere there?
Yeah, sure. I was at the event earlier today and the atmosphere was great with many new exciting games showcasing for the first time this year. The main B2C crowd will flood in from tomorrow after Suneung, but the B2B participants got to take a sneak peek at the B2C event hall from today. And so far, from what I've seen, it looks like it's going to be a great event with big companies showcasing their new exciting games. And this year's G-Star has also expanded their B2C main hall as well as, so gamers will definitely have a lot to enjoy. And also, I've heard the B2B tickets have been sold out this year, which also shows the high anticipation of this year's G-Star event. Not just in terms of high level of interest from gamers, but also from a business perspective, which shows things really have picked up after COVID.
All right, I see. It must be very exciting to be at the very spot, Austin. Well, Ethan, before we tap into the specifics of G-Star and which companies are there, I'd like to talk about the location first. Not just G-Star, the semifinals of this year's League of Legends World Championship also took place in the southeastern city of Busan. And for gamers, what does Busan City mean? And given that Busan City is currently bidding for the 2030 World Expo, what promotional effect could there be by having such gaming events?
Busan actually has been making quite a name for themselves, especially in the world of gaming and esports. For example, they sponsor multiple esports teams. Busan has its own map and a very popular game called Overwatch. And like you mentioned, they also hosted League of Legends Worlds and MSI, which is the two largest international tournaments for League of Legends. And they also hosted World Cyber Games this July, and they had a bunch of popular games like Clash Royale and Mobile Legends and things like that. I think this kind of support overall is very supportive. The support overall have a positive impact for the upcoming Expo 2030 bid because gaming and esports is becoming, becoming a very popular trend among youth, especially. For gamers, I think they see Busan as kind of like a cultural hub. I think Busan long ago they still are, but they were famous for films. They have an international film festival there and things like that. And now it's slowly shifting towards games. I'm not sure if gamers actually view Busan as like this major world international esports city yet. But I think with this continued support, I think one day gamers will kind of view the city as one of the biggest esports cities in the world.
All right, I see. Well, it seems such gaming events could definitely give a boost to Busan's bid for 2030 Expo. All right, well, Austin, back to G-Star itself. One of South Korea's major game developers and publishers, NCSoft, has come back for the first time in 8 years, while Smilegate came back after 9 years. Could you tell us what kinds of new titles these big developers brought to this year's event?
Yes, both of these companies are definitely in the heart of excitement around this year's G-Star. NCSoft ambitiously opened the largest booth this year, looking to showcase 7 titles, which is not so common for these kind of events. But to name a few, they'll be introducing the shooting game Triple L, Royal Rumble game Battle Crush, collectible RPG BSS, and these games will be available on multiple platforms from PC to console for gamers to come and try out. And Smilegate RPG has also dropped some big news for this year. They'll be unveiling Lost Ark Mobile, which is a mobile version of the globally successful MMORPG title Lost Ark. Gamers will get the chance to play the test game at their booth for the first time, which is super exciting as well. And not to leave out these guys, the other major game companies such as Krafton, Remade, WebZen, Gravity, they also have a lot of fun and exciting games for users to come and experience.
All right, I see. They all sound very exciting. Lucky you to be at the very spot, Austin. Well, Ethan, we have been just talking about big developers like NCSoft, but what other game publishers are participating? What can visitors expect?
Yeah, I would like to talk about maybe two publishers. One is called the Dead Sisters. They published a game called Cookie Run, which I think many people might be familiar with. They will be showcasing a new game called the Cookie Run Tower Adventures, which is based on the Cookie Run franchise. It's a real-time 3D co-op action game. You form a team with maybe random people or with your friends, and you just fight monsters as characters of Cookie Run. And the game that I'm kind of particularly interested in is it's a game called Breakers Unlock the World. It's created by a publishing company called Vic Game Studios, which is an anime-based RPG. It will be available for PC and mobile. It is a very fast-paced action game, but it has a really awesome-looking anime art and graphics. So if anyone is a big fan of anime and big fan of action RPGs, I think that game is something that's worth checking out.
All right, I see. Thank you for recommending some of the new titles that we might be able to expect. All right. Well, Austin, we have talked about what visitors can expect, but how does participation in this event benefit game companies? What can they expect?
Well, since G-Star is one of the largest game shows in Asia, I think the pure attraction and exposure alone would justify participation. And on top of that, I think attending these events will create windows of opportunity for medium to small game developers in terms of investment opportunities and other lucrative business opportunities. To add, I believe it is always important for game companies to have intimate interactions with gamers to really understand their liking of the game and also to have a real firm grasp of current trends.
All right, so participating in the event itself could mean business opportunities for the companies. All right, well, Ethan, I'd like to now talk about the trends. Now, we can see the latest gaming trends through the event, and one noteworthy aspect is that games are expanding boundaries to console platforms. What is the reason behind such a trend?
I think it's mostly because of flexibility. Before that, if you wanted to play a certain game, like and you had a certain console, or if you had a PC, like there were games that you could not play. I mean, it's still like that, but I think more companies are realizing that that's not helpful for players, so they want to expand their platforms to other consoles and even mobile, so that people with any system that they have, they can enjoy the game. This will also increase the number of players that are in the game, so that you'll have, I guess, better matches and you can play with more players. And I think that's a win-win situation for both publishers and also gamers. So I think this is a really good trend. I hope it's something that Korean gaming companies can continue.
All right. Well, you've just said that the Korean companies are trying to expand their boundaries to console platforms and also mobile as well. But do you think Korean companies are doing well right now? In terms of expanding boundaries, yes.
As far as I know, G-Star, some of the most popular games that are showcased in G-Star have multi-platform games. So I think they're doing well.
All right, I see. Now, Austin, another notable aspect is the popularity of subculture games. And to meet the changing trends, G-Star even decided to hold a side event called the Subculture Game Festival. What is this, and why is it increasingly becoming mainstream?
Right. Subculture usually refers to, non-mainstream way of life, customs, or trends. But in gaming, subculture usually used to describe genres of games that are heavily influenced by Japanese anime and they call subculture trends. And I understand that the subculture trend was always there, but games like Genshin Impact by Hoyoverse really brought it up to the surface, which is ironic to name the subculture now because it's so mainstream. But even before games like Genshin Impact, there have been subculture games that were massively successful, and I think it's just become one of the core genres in gaming now. And the reason behind its popularity, I believe to be, is largely due to very attractive anime-like character designs, unique character persona, and high-quality voice acting. And also, a lot of technical advancements in game development technology have come to the point where they can capture the excitement of the anime battle scenes into a game. And in recent times, you can enjoy these high-quality games on your mobile, which makes them more accessible. And on top of all this, there have been trends of cosplay, and I think having Japanese anime characters come to real life kind of creates a lot of hype and a lot of excitement for users to kind of feel that the game characters can come to life. And I think a lot of subculture events like that for cosplay has made the hype even bigger.
Right, I see. Well, Austin, I just mentioned that there is a side event in G-Star called the Subculture Game Festival. Were you able to go there?
Unfortunately, no. I was busy with meetings, stuck in the meeting rooms. But
really?
If I had the chance, I would have gone.
All right, all right.
These events are really exciting, yeah.
All right, because we have a reporter there doing the reports, and I just heard that there are so many people wearing the costumes, the game costumes, and it was quite interesting to hear that. Were you able to also see the people in game costumes?
Yes,
Really?
there are actually a lot of people that come in costumes and walking around and taking photos with people, just requesting to take selfies, and I think magazine companies also come along and take a lot of photos as well. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Right, well, Ethan, let's go a little bit broader into the game industry itself. South Korea accounts for around 7% of the global game market as of 2021, the fourth largest behind the US, China, and Japan. We are going to talk about how South Korea's gaming industry is doing, but before that, how are gaming industries in the US, China, and Japan different from each other? What is each country's strength?
Yeah, so the gaming industry in each market and region have their own unique selling points. The US is known for innovation and very large market size. China has a vast player base, and their mobile gaming market is booming. They're doing pretty well. And Japan has its rich history of iconic game franchises. So I would like to, if I were to talk a little bit about each US. They have some of the biggest gaming companies in the world, like Riot Games and Blizzard, and they have been pushing out really popular franchises such as League of Legends and Call of Duty. If you're a gamer, you've definitely heard of these two games. Chinese gaming companies, their strength really comes from investing in and publishing already established mobile games. They have a stake in PUBG Mobile, which has been doing really well all over the world. But they also have their own really popular games such as Honor of Kings, and both games, I believe, in 2002 netted about $1.6 billion in revenue. Japanese gaming companies, they are definitely something that everyone is probably really familiar with because they have a history of a lot of iconic game franchises like Super Mario, Final Fantasy, Pokemon. Even if you're not a gamer, you have definitely heard of some of these, and Japan has been doing really well pushing out these franchises, and Pokemon has been really successful. I believe they are considered to be one of the most profitable franchises in history.
All right, well, thank you for explaining each characteristic of its own country's gaming industry. But Austin, amid such fierce competition, South Korea's game industry has seen increasing sales, and in 2021, it went over 20 trillion Korean won for the first time. And export sales, too, are continuing to see an increase. What is so unique about South Korean games?
There'll be multiple unique points for a lot of different genres and types of games out there, but I think to name a couple, the uniqueness will be content progression and giving a good challenge to gamers, I think, which is the two core aspects of games, I think. And I think it is well known that, Korean gamers have insane pace of play in terms of content consumption and high general skill level to match the content consumption. And Korean companies are constantly challenged by their domestic users to push out more content to match their content consumption, and they also have to make a very game that is challenging enough to keep them entertained, which is also, a good aspect that could appeal to a lot of global gamers out there. And in terms of visual aesthetics, I think Korean games have very nice, visually pleasing graphics. And I think Korean artists have a very high skill in terms of creating very strong visual effects for skills. So for a game like a RPG game where a character uses a certain magic spell, I think the visual effects are very important. And I think Korean game companies have a very good skill level to make the game actually feel realistic and visually appealing.
All right, I see. Now, however, Ethan, some say there needs to be a turning point for the game industry as the domestic gaming market faces saturation. What difficulties is the industry facing right now?
I think one of the two things that gaming companies could improve on is maybe global expansion. Because aside from few titles, for example, Lost Ark, many of the games published, created in Korea, most of their players are in Korea, and they have failed to, well, not failed, but they have difficulty expanding, especially they're behind, I guess, other big franchises like Super Mario or Pokemon. And I think that is something that they can work on, trying to appeal to a wider audience. I think there's also a need for maybe innovation. Because in my opinion, just many of the games that are being released in South Korea are either mobile MMORPGs or RPGs in general. I think there should be innovation to expand to other genres, or maybe have like a different take on how we can play these MMORPGs. And I think those two things are maybe two difficulties that the gaming companies are facing right now.
Right, I see. So we might have to focus on global expansion, and we might have to come up with innovative ideas to expand our boundaries and genres. All right, well, I believe this would be our last question, and I'd like to ask both of our experts. Now, what kinds of measures should be put in place to further develop the industry? Ethan, could you start us off?
Yeah, sure. I wish that Korean gaming companies could develop like an iconic franchise, just like how I mentioned Super Mario, Final Fantasy, something that like the world can recognize right away, something with a rich story, rich character development and things like that. I think that's one of the ways I think they can develop the industry. And like I mentioned before, I think we should get into more genres. We have some of the best looking games, and I think it would be amazing to have other genre games with our artists and with our talent and things like that. I believe that we can create something amazing, and also focus more on global collaboration. Since we're kind of like struggling to expand to the global market, maybe working with other companies could also help them. And I guess from my point of view, I wish, because I cover mostly esports, I wish Korean gaming companies could create more esports titles, because, we are really famous for our esports players, but unfortunately we play mostly non-Korean games for esports. So I hope one day we can play a Korean-created esports titles in the future.
Right, I hope so too. Well, Austin, may I ask your opinion as well?
Well, I strongly agree with what Ethan said so far, but I'd like to take a different point of view. I think this applies to all saturated markets and markets with dinosaurs taking most of the pie, like the Korean gaming industry, where the three big ends are, in charge of the most of the domestic market. And I think there needs to be a constant effort put in to support small game developers and indie game developers, and also allowing younger generation of future game developers to paint their canvas with new exciting ideas. and drive the trend of the market, which kind of touches on what Ethan said, that we need to diversify on the genres of games that we make. I believe that big companies are forced to kind of funnel into RPGs and MMORPGs because most of the money is there. And I understand that from a big company point of view, but for an entertainment business, and I believe games to be a part of like a creative industry as well, there needs to be a lot of smaller game developers and indie game makers to have enough support to come up with new ideas and new genres of games for innovative ideas. And games industry is in fact a multi-billion-dollar global business market, and it is something Korean companies are quite good at so far, except for the parts that we just spoke of. And with more support, many more could do better, and I think that would expand the spectrum of Korean games in the long run.
All right, well, I cannot agree more. And based on what our experts told us, hopefully we can continue to see a boost for the game industry. All right, well, thank you, Austin and Ethan, for your time and insights. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.